Hi everybody. Oh, it's windy. It's Allison Davies here from Oh My Musical Goodness. Let me just steady you. There we go. I'm here because I was inspired to come and tell you something really important, and that is the difference between tantrums and meltdowns. Um, Now, it's really important to understand this because tantrums and meltdowns can look exactly the same. And unless you understand the differences between them, you might not be managing them or treating them in the best and most effective way. Okay, so we all know what a tantrum is. It is a conscious set of behaviours that are put in place specifically for an outcome. So, child wants an icy pole, child is told no. Child then stacks on a turn, and often during a tantrum you'll notice a child stop, just like, is she still watching me? Is she taking any notice? And also when they get the icy pole, it all kind of stops and they're happy and life goes on. So a meltdown isn't a clinical term, it's a colloquial term, but I have read a really lovely definition, which is the protective disconnect from discomfort. So when a child is not coping with the situation they're in, their body goes into this protective response, and it disconnects them from where they are. Now, meltdowns are caused by anything can trigger a meltdown or a tantrum for that matter, and there are grey areas there where tantrums and meltdowns can kind of overlap, and children who are prone to meltdowns might be more prone to tantrums as well. So there are grey areas there, but there's no such thing as meltdown syndrome or tantrum disorder. You know, it's not a thing of its own. It is triggered by something else. It's always triggered by something. Now that there's plenty of reasons why that could be triggered, but one of the main ones, and one of the ones I'm most passionate about talking to you and teaching you about, is the sensory system. So sensory meltdowns are very common when the child is not coping with all the sensory information around them. You might be at the playground, at the fair, the market, Kmart, you know, anywhere where there is so much going on, there's lots of noises, there's bright fluorescent lights, there's people everywhere and things everywhere. That is a lot of sensory information for your brains to make sense of. And 1 in 20 children in Australia and America are estimated to have sensory processing difficulties, which means the brain gets confused. It's getting all this sensory stuff thrown at it and it can't make sense of it all. And when you're in an area where there is so much sensory information around you, like the market or Kmart, child does not make sense, brain does not make sense of it, child starts to not cope, and then body goes into this protective place, which is meltdown world. Okay, so the meltdown happens to protect them from all this stuff around them that they can't make sense of. Now, a meltdown usually can come to an end in 2 different ways. So you can remove the child from the environment that they're struggling in. So if you are in a cafe and there's smells, okay, and your child isn't coping with it, take them out of there. If you're in a market, a crowded place, move them away from there. So removing the child from the environment they're in is the first and basically one of the only things you can do to help stop or manage a meltdown. Once your child is having a meltdown, there's not a lot you can do. Hi.
Hi.
So tantrums, there's lots of ways of fixing a tantrum. You give them what they want. Tantrum ends. With a meltdown, they might have a fixation on wanting something, but giving it to them isn't going to make a difference. Once they're in a meltdown, it's happening in their body. It's not, they're not consciously doing it. Okay, so removing them from the environment is really helpful, but the other way that tantrums commonly come to an end is the child will fall asleep. Meltdowns are exhausting. fatigue. Fatigue is what follows a meltdown. The recovery is actually very slow, and it could be days before your child is back to themselves. So the best thing, what we want to do, is prevent meltdowns from happening. That's a conversation for another day, but I just really wanted you to have the basic understanding of the difference between a tantrum and a meltdown, because despite the fact that they look very, very similar, they're actually not at all alike in terms of the cause or the management. So that's all I really wanted to tell you. I'm coming to you from my orchard. Can you see I've got like a circle of black currants there. In the middle of the black currants, oh, right where I'm pointing. I didn't plan that, but that looks good, is my bay tree. And then all around are fruit trees. Actually, you are hanging from a wire that I'm using to espalier. My fruit tree's going in a big border around the edge. So there's my orchard. Okay, I think that's all for today. If you have anything that you want me to talk about, shoot me a message. And if you have anything to add as to your understanding of the difference between tantrums and meltdowns, or any really important information that I could use or other people reading or listening to this could use about how to manage them, shoot it in the comments. Let's get this conversation happening, because there are still too many people who don't know the difference and who think a meltdown is a tantrum or think a meltdown is an excuse for a tantrum, and we want to break that. We want to break that train of thought in half and get everyone understanding our children's needs. Do you want to say goodbye?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Push button.
Oh, yeah.